Hello, welcome back. I'm Dr. Pasion-Gonzales, and this is week 3, and we're going to review chapter 2, the biological perspective. Okay? Now, this chapter is almost all biology. There are some brain structures and chemicals, nervous system parts, and cell structures. What I want to do in this lecture is highlight some of the main features that impact your learning and psychological health. Even though there's a lot of information to memorize, I would like you to think about how this chapter can relate to your own personal learning. Here are some of the main points I want you to really get a good grasp on, okay? First of all, I want you to have a general understanding of the structure of neurons. First of all, think about what is the purpose of neurons. And I want you to be sure that you can at least name the 3 parts of a neuron: the dendrite, the axon terminal, and be able to just give me a one-sentence explanation of what they do. Now, glial cells are interesting to me for a couple of reasons. This is not in the book, but I think you just need to know this. All right. So what happens is during sleep, glial cells come in and they clear out all the dead neurons and other junk in our brain that is crucial to consolidating new information and learning. So this is one of the reasons why getting a good night's sleep before a big test is a whole lot better than the old idea of pulling an all-nighter to cram at the last minute. Sleep is part of the process that helps our brain hold on to information that we try to store in it. Without good sleep, we can read and try to remember stuff, but it's just not going to stick the same way. It's the glial cells that actually, you can think about it like creating space for new learning in your brain. Secondly, there's a type of glial cell called myelin that acts as electrical insulation for the wiring in our brain. This protective sheath increases the speed and the strength of electrical impulses that pass through our nervous system. Okay? And the speed and strength of the impulses increase the more we practice a habit or a skill or a behavior. So the more you practice playing the piano or drawing or hitting a baseball or reading, that myelin sheathing is wrapping around those nerves that are related to that particular task. The more you practice, the stronger those impulses are, the faster that they fire. And so that's how we become skilled and more comfortable over time. It's because of this myelin sheathing that helps us create habits on a biological level. Here's the thing about myelin. It doesn't unwrap. Okay, so you want to create good habits right out of the chute because they're much more difficult to break bad habits once they're established. The thing about myelin is it takes about a month to wrap around all that wiring inside our brain. So learning a new skill or making a behavior change, you want to be very, very diligent up front, and you want to put all of your work and attention up front because that's when it's going to be most difficult to establish a new habit. Once that myelin sheathing wraps, it's going to become so much easier after that. Okay, so hang in there. Really make sure that you put in most of your hard work in that first month. Now, let's move on to neurotransmitters and synapses. What I want you to understand is the basic concept that there are receptor sites called synapses that are sensitive to specific types of chemicals or neurotransmitters. These impulses start with the chemicals in the synapses, but they get transmitted electrically over the axons. Now, this isn't in the book, but have you ever wondered how caffeine actually interferes with your sleep? Right? So we know that it's a stimulant, and that's true. But the other piece of it is there's a chemical in your brain called adenosine. And what it does is it acts like a biological clock. So if you imagine one of those old clocks, with the sand in it and the sand drips down, right? So this adenosine gets stored in certain receptor sites in your brain, and when this adenosine reaches a certain level, it triggers your body to start getting tired, to wind down, to feel fatigued and drowsy so that you can sleep. So what happens is caffeine has a chemical that fits in that same synapse where that adenosine would typically get absorbed. So the caffeine actually blocks the adenosine from getting into the receptor site. So your biological clock gets paused. So your body, which is generally designed to run on a 16-hour wake cycle, when you get caffeine that blocks that synapse, that receptor site, everything gets pushed back hours, right? So if you're drinking coffee at noon, okay, it is going to be nearly impossible for you to feel drowsy and sleepy even 12 hours later, because your body is on a 16-hour cycle and it's been disrupted. Does that make sense? So even if you're drinking coffee before noon, really any time during the day, your body does not have enough time to build up that natural chemical that tells your body it's time to go to sleep before 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So here's the moral of the story. Caffeine can interrupt your sleep pretty much any time during the day. Sorry for the bad news if you own stock in Starbucks. Just a couple of other points. There's a couple of specific neurotransmitters, such as serotonin and GABA, that are specifically related to mental health issues. For example, antidepressants such as Prozac and Zoloft and Lexapro, they're all SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And they are involved in keeping the serotonin from being reabsorbed back into your body and available to stay active in your brain longer. That's how it increases the level of serotonin in your brain. So we don't know why, but it seems to be helpful in reducing depression. GABA. GABA is another neurotransmitter, and it seems to be helpful in calming anxiety. And alcohol is one of the things that interacts with GABA, which is why it can help people relax. However, don't be fooled into believing that alcohol is a good sleep aid or medicinal for anxiety. It is not. For sleep, for example, alcohol can make you drowsy and fall asleep quickly, but it is also an adjutant to your nervous system. So people tend to wake up after the alcohol wears off in the middle of the night, and we almost never feel rested the next day. So it's really not a good way to get good sleep. And in relation to anxiety, the truth is there's enough side effects and problems from alcohol that outweigh any of the potential short-term benefits on anxiety. The truth is, you are much better off getting some regular exercise, avoiding caffeine, and staying well connected to other people if you want to help bring down that anxiety. There's also some relaxation exercises that can probably help as well. And I'm hoping later on in the year we'll have a chance to talk about some of that. I thought it was very interesting to read how morphine and heroin leads our body to stop producing the natural endorphins so that when you stop using, everything hurts. It's one of the big factors that contributes to people getting addicted to these types of medications. So in general, I would review Table 2.1, the neurotransmitters and their functions, so that you just have a general understanding of the neurotransmitters and what they do. Okay? Next, let's move on to brain structures. And there's 3 primary brain structures that I want you to be aware of and to understand how they work together. And those are the hippocampus, the amygdala, and the prefrontal cortex. So first, the hippocampus. Here's how I remember the word, okay? Where do hippos go to school? At the hippocampus. Boom, boom. So the hippocampus is involved in storing long-term memories. The memories aren't stored in the hippocampus, but it's part of that process to get them stored, okay? And the neurotransmitter that is involved is ACH. Now, it just so happens that people who have Alzheimer's disease have a very low level of ACH. Also, sleep is crucial to learning because it's during sleep where the hippocampus is cleared out to make room for more learning. The next structure is the amygdala. And how I remember this term is I think about if Godzilla had a girlfriend, her name might be Amygdala. It's kind of got that same feel to it, okay? Now, the amygdala serves two primary functions. It initiates the fear response when there's a perceived threat to us, and it also connects emotions with important memories. You can think of the amygdala like a chimp. It's powerful, emotional, impulsive, and difficult to reason with logically. Now, this fear response that the amygdala initiates, it is very, very, very fast. In fact, our brain is wired so that that fear response, which initiates sending cortisol and adrenaline to our body, preparing ourselves for this fight or flight response, it's about 10 times faster than it takes for the signal to reach that cognitive thinking, processing, awareness part of our brain, right? So we can literally be afraid before we are even aware of what we're afraid of. So the amygdala also attaches strong emotions to important memories. This is why old memories can still elicit a powerful emotion from us. The memory itself is not necessarily emotional, but the amygdala attaches emotion to the memory so that we won't forget it. This is a real drag for painful emotions. But you can also use this to your advantage by tying some strong emotions to information you want to remember. We'll talk more about this in upcoming chapters. Now, the other side of this is the prefrontal cortex. I often think about it as a professor. This area of our brain is linked to cognitive control, executive functioning, and goal-directed behavior. This is where self-awareness and working memory and organization and setting priorities and time management, all of these executive functioning occurs in this part of our brain, okay? So think of the prefrontal cortex as the professor, planful, thoughtful, intentional, but not nearly as powerful as the chimp. Good performance involves figuring out how to use both of these brain areas in a complementary fashion. There you go. Remember, you still have to read the chapter, you still have to take the quizzes in Revel, and in Canvas, there's a chapter exam that you're going to have to take as well. The discussion board is listed in the syllabus and in the module for this chapter. All right? Work hard, stay on top of your homework. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or join me in my office hours on Zoom, and I'll look forward to talking with you soon. Take care.